just filmed this whole video. I did not put any mascara on. So don't mind the fact that I will be going through this video and my intro and my outro without mascara on. Hello everyone, so today I'm doing a little bit of a different video. I'm gonna get ready. I want to play with a bunch of makeup, but I want to do a little story time while I'm getting ready. So today's story is my pregnancy, labor, and delivery of my oldest daughter, Clara, and I wanted to share that experience with you guys. I think it's super interesting to hear other moms' experiences with their pregnancies and births, and I thought it would be fun to share mine because mine did not go as planned, and I thought I would let you guys, you know, listen to what happened to me and what my experience was being a first-time mom and my first time pregnancy and labor and delivery. So that is what I have for you guys today. First, before we get started, if you guys are new, hey, my name's Liz. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Also ring your guys' notification bell so you can be notified for all my future videos. If you guys want to see how I created this look and hear a little story about my delivery experience of my 3-year-old, then just keep watching. Okay, so basically I'm just gonna start playing with my makeup and throwing it on my face and then talk about what I planned on talking about today. So I'll have everything that I use in the description box below, so I'm not really gonna like show you what I'm using, and then, you know, I'm just, you know, it's gonna be talking. Okay, so basically just to kind of begin, I guess, from the beginning, my husband and I got married at the end of December in 2014. And we planned on waiting to have kids for, you know, 3-ish years or so. Give us some time to just be him and I. And he was still in school. He had a couple years left of school, so we wanted to finish that up. So that was our plan. So probably a couple weeks after we got married, probably close to a month after we got married, we were at my family's house, and I had a niece that spilled the beans about my sister being pregnant. And so we were all excited for her, and they jokingly said, "Just watch, you're gonna be pregnant too." And I was like, no, don't even say that. Don't even joke about it, because I do not want to be pregnant right now. We literally just got married. Well, that night, people had given us pregnancy tests as a joke for our wedding. And so we go home, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take one for the sake of it and putting my mind at ease. So I took it, and what do you know? I was pregnant. We were both a little shocked and probably a bit worried. I think I called my mom crying because I just, you know, we literally had just gotten married. That's how I found out that I was pregnant with Clara. Literally, like, right from the beginning, it sucked. Probably best way to put it. I was sick all the time. I was throwing up constantly. I worked at a job which thankfully let me stay home a lot and work from home, which was really, really nice. But it got to the point where I was so sick so much that I couldn't go in. And one night I ended up going to the emergency room because I was literally throwing up every 10-20 minutes on cue for hours. I couldn't stop vomiting. It was horrible. And at that point I was like 10 weeks pregnant. Nothing was working. So we ended up going to the emergency room, and they gave me meds and they gave me fluids to hydrate me because I was so dehydrated from throwing up so much. At that point, we decided that I needed to quit my job. I was so stressed from trying to be at work and basically just being in the bathroom the whole time and throwing up. And so we decided that it would be best for me to quit and stay home. So that is what I did. I quit my job, and I was probably, I don't know, 12 weeks pregnant at that point, and it sucked. I was just nauseous 24/7. I was trying everything that you could possibly think of to help the nausea, and it wasn't working. I would say that it probably started settling down a bit. I don't know, like a bit before 20 weeks. We lived in a studio apartment and we didn't have a washer and dryer, and I remember trying to take my clothes to the laundromat and just being in so much pain all the time. I would just get headaches and I just didn't feel good. So I would say that those probably started easing up, like the nausea and everything being, and the throwing up probably eased up about 20 weeks. So for me, it lasted so much longer than I feel like typically everybody else. So then at about, I think I was about 35 weeks pregnant, I started getting these really bad back pain. I mean, it was like back contractions that would start in my back and then move to my stomach. And it hurt horribly. And I mean, I was in tears. It hurt so much. I was up all night with them. I was up literally all night with them and couldn't sleep. My husband had to go to work the next morning. I stayed home and was just in so much pain all day long. I called my parents, let them know what was going on, and asked them to take me to the hospital. And I had called my midwife and she had said to go get checked out. So my parents came and got me and I went to the hospital to see what was going on. I was having a lot of contractions and I ended up having a really bad urinary tract infection, and it was causing a ton of contractions and it was just not fun. They had to give me a shot that hurt so bad. I couldn't sit without being in pain after that shot. It sucked. It was so bad. So they obviously sent me home. Yeah, I just had to take antibiotics and try to rest up. It was just not a fun experience at all. So after that, everything was basically going fine. I mean, as fine as, you know, pregnancy goes when you're that pregnant. I had really bad heartburn and was taking Tums like crazy. It hurt to walk. Obviously would get a lot of pain in my lower back, and so that was fun. But right before I was 39 weeks, we decided to, you know, we should get the house stocked up of food so that when we come home from having the baby, there will be food in the house. All this, you know, just getting ready, getting prepared to have the baby. And I was probably 38 weeks and 5 days, I think. We walked around and grocery shopped for like an hour and a half. So just imagine being almost 40 weeks pregnant and walking around for an hour and a half grocery shopping. Probably wasn't my brightest idea, but that's what we did. So I remember coming home, and after putting away all the groceries, I went to the bathroom and everything was wet. I was like, I don't think I, you know, peed my pants. I would lay down for 30 minutes and stand back up and see if I felt anything come out or anything like that, and I didn't. So I decided to wait until the morning and call my doctor then. So I wasn't having contractions or anything. It was just a pretty normal night. And I woke up the next morning. My husband went to work. I decided to call my doctor. I told her what happened, and she told me to go in to the hospital to get checked to see if my water broke. So I go in and my husband comes home and they're doing all these swab tests and everything to see if my water broke, and they're not really sure if it did or not. So my midwife comes in and she checks and she's like, yeah, your water broke. I can see some amniotic fluid coming out. So they decided to keep me, and they started me on Pitocin just to help everything go along, because like I said, I wasn't having contractions, and so they just did that to help out. So I checked in the morning, probably around 10-ish. They probably started the Pitocin, I'm assuming around noon. And that's how I stayed for a long freaking time. I got an epidural probably around 4-ish. I wouldn't say that the contractions were super bad when I got the epidural, but the nurses kept telling me, oh, it'll take a long time once you request an epidural for the anesthesiologist to get there and actually give you the epidural. So you probably want to request it, you know, when you're not in a lot of pain, so that you don't have to wait a long time to get your epidural. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and request it now. They came in like I said, probably around 4-ish, and gave me the epidural. It sucked. I guess knowing now, I didn't realize it then. The person that was giving it to me was like a student. They were being taught. And so it hurt a lot. I don't know. It was not fun. I will just say that. So I had my family come and be in the hospital with me. Obviously my husband was there, but my mom and my 2 sisters were there, and so was my dad. We were expecting, you know, hopefully that the baby would come that night. I was in labor all throughout the night and I was slowly progressing. It wasn't a very fast progression. It would take hours to get to the next number. You know, they were turning me with the ball and everything. Oh, I forgot to mention this, after I had the epidural done, they were hooking everything up to the baby internally, and they couldn't get some of the wires hooked up to the baby's head because I was only at a 2. I was really, like, I wasn't progressed hardly at all. So one nurse had to come in here and do it, and when she did it, my water actually broke, and I mean, it went everywhere. But so what I'm assuming what happened was that my water had only like torn, so it was slow leaking. It wasn't like my actual water had broke altogether. So I was still just, it was just like a slow leak, if that makes sense. So when she did that, she broke my water altogether. So like I said, I was progressing really, really slowly throughout the night, all night long, and my family stayed there all night long. My husband was curled up on a chair, 2 chairs, I think. And my sisters and parents were still there. And I think my dad may have gone out to the car and tried sleeping in the car for a little bit. I think everybody else just tried to sleep where they could. They were such troopers. I felt so bad. I kept saying, you know, it's okay. You guys can go home if you need to. And they all wanted to be there, so they stayed with me. So I don't remember what time it was. I hit a 6 and we thought, okay, this is going really, really well. I should be progressing really fast at this point and hopefully have the baby soon. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and I didn't progress pretty much past that point. And at this point, it had been over 24 hours since my water ripped from the first time that it happened, from the night before when I had noticed it leaking. So my midwife came in probably about 7 a.m. and checked me. The nurses had thought that I was like an 8 when my midwife came in and checked me, and she said, no, you're still at a 7. I just stopped progressing. My body stopped the progression. And at that point I was feeling pain in my body. It's like the epidural wore off on half of my body. And I was being able to feel the contractions in one side, and it was just super miserable. So at that point she said, you know, your baby's at risk for infection. I had a fever, so they were giving me antibiotics for that. They obviously, once your water's been broke for so long, you risk infection. Your baby risks getting an infection. So at that point, they said, we can't really wait any longer. We've waited 24 hours, and at this point, it would probably be best to have a C-section. And I cried. I just immediately started bawling. I was so sad. Yeah, it was just a feeling of, you don't plan to have a C-section for your first pregnancy. That's not what you plan for. You plan to have a natural delivery, you know, hold the baby as soon as it comes out and have that moment with your child. And that's not what happened for me. I was really, really sad about it. She gave me some time to think about it, and Matt and I talked it over, and I just felt really like there was nothing else I could do. I had no choice at that point. So we signed off on it. So then the doctor who was going to be performing my C-section came in to talk to me about it. Everybody kind of knew that I was having a really hard time. I had nurses coming in and hugging me because they heard that I was gonna have to have a C-section and how upset I was. And came in and consoled me, and you just have that feeling like you failed, like your body failed. And what your body's supposed to do, it didn't do. And so that was the biggest thing for me. I don't know. It was just a really hard thing. And so the doctor came in and explained that women in the old days who were in the same situation as me and their body just stops progressing, and you know, you go so long being in labor, and those women would die. So I had already had my epidural in, so they didn't obviously have to do any of that. It wasn't like a rushed C-section. It wasn't an emergency C-section. It was just a normal C-section, I would say. Obviously, they didn't want me going any longer than I had already gone. So they took me back and got me all set up, got my husband all dressed in his gown, and he came in there with me and sat next to me, and it sucked. I don't know how else to explain it. I could feel the tugging and the pulling and the pressure, and it hurt. It wasn't like I just couldn't feel anything. I felt a lot. I obviously didn't feel like the cutting and everything like that. That would have been horrible, but I did feel the pressure. It was not fun. It got to a point where I got so sick that the anesthesiologist had to hold the bag for me while I threw up while they were in the process of delivering my child. And not to mention, he was very attractive. So, you know, having him sit there and hold my barf bag for me and then clean up the vomit off my chin was a very wonderful experience. They brought her over and I saw her and they weighed her. It's so hard because I don't remember a lot of it. I was so tired. I had been up for over 24 hours at that point. I was pumped with so many different drugs that I could hardly keep my eyes open. I feel like it didn't take long for them to get her out. It was putting everything back together after it was done was what took the longest. And my husband left and went with the baby. And so I was in there by myself, and my family obviously couldn't be in there, but they did let them wait outside of the room where there was a window. They brought her over to the window so my family could see her right after she was born. So after they were done, they just brought me back to the room, to that same room that I was in. And they brought the baby to me and I got to sit and hold her. But again, I was so tired. I couldn't enjoy that moment. I was literally struggling to keep my eyes open. It's like I couldn't control it. I was closing my eyes. I couldn't enjoy holding my baby for the first time. I honestly just wanted somebody to take her so that I could sleep. And that's basically what I did. Although I don't remember if I slept very much. And I think that Matt may have slept on the couch too. Like I said, a lot of this is a blur. I can't remember a lot of what happened, and I was on pain meds that made me really, really sleepy. So on top of that, I don't remember. I was there for, I think, 3 nights, maybe 4 days. I think, you know, we checked in on a Saturday and I believe we left either on Wednesday or Thursday. I don't remember for sure, but I can tell you that my postpartum experience sucked. It was horrible. And this goes for both times I've had babies. My postpartum experience has been absolutely horrendous. If you are a postpartum nurse, please, please take pity on us. I know that it's probably such a pain in the butt to deal with pregnant women and pregnant women who have just had babies, but those experiences have literally like made me almost not want to have more babies because I don't want to go through that again. You know, when you're in labor and all the nurses are taking care of you and they're all so friendly and nice and, you know, do whatever you ask and, you know, are there to take care of you. And then as soon as you have that baby, it's like, let's just do whatever we can to get her out of here as quickly as possible. They took me to a different room, to the postpartum care rooms. They just, I don't know, I wasn't treated well. I was very much treated, especially I feel like since I had a C-section, it was like, great. Now she's gonna have to be here longer. And mind you, I was literally the only person in the hospital that day having a baby. So it's not like they had a ton of people in there to care for. I was it. That was it. They just acted like you were a nuisance. If you needed anything, their attitude sucked. And it wasn't just one nurse, it was multiple nurses. I didn't know how to breastfeed. Obviously, this was my first baby and I needed to learn to nurse. When the lactation specialist came in to help me, the nurses came in and they were like, oh no, we need the baby. I think that they needed to do antibiotics. And so they basically gave me like 2 minutes with the lactation specialist and then took the baby from me. I didn't get to learn how to breastfeed. I didn't get help. And anytime I asked any of the other nurses to help, they would act very, very annoyed. They just acted like they couldn't be bothered. It sucked. And they expected you to nurse, you know, on a time schedule, and they would get mad that you didn't nurse at the time that they told you that the baby needed to nurse and for how long you needed to nurse. And I couldn't do it. I would supplement with formula and they would make me feel like poop for supplementing with formula. I was using a shield and, you know, it just wasn't a fun experience. Clara would cry and cry and cry because obviously she was hungry and my milk hadn't come in. I mean, there was literally nothing there. I would pump, they gave me a machine to pump with and nothing would come out. Not even colostrum, nothing. I did not have anything. Clara was hungry and not getting anything from me when I was trying to nurse, and so it just made it a miserable, hard experience because my baby was hungry and I wasn't making the food to feed her. At night, they would take her to the nursery, but probably at like 3 a.m. they would bring her back to me and they'd be like, oh, she's hungry. And I would hold her and she would just fall right back asleep. Like the second I held her, she'd just go to sleep. So I would just let her sleep on me and I would just sit there wide awake at 3 in the morning. And so I wasn't sleeping. So there was one day, my husband obviously couldn't stay with me. Like I said, he was working and going to school, so he couldn't miss a ton of school. He couldn't miss a ton of work. And he had to go back. So there were several days I was there all by myself. One of the days, I asked my nurse, I was like, is there any way that she can go lay in the nursery and sleep for a little while so that I can sleep? I'm so tired. I am not sleeping at night. And she was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll put a don't disturb sign on your door and I'll take the baby and put her down in the nursery and give you a couple hours to sleep. I was like, great, that would be fantastic. So I'm trying to go to sleep and I kid you not, like 30 minutes later, this nurse comes in. Clara is screaming bloody murder, like screaming. Mind you, I did check off I wanted to breastfeed, but I also was okay with formula so that if they needed to give her formula while she was in the nursery, they could give it to her. And she comes in, goes, she's hungry, and hands the baby and leaves. And I was like, granted, this is my child, but at the same time, like, I'm a new mom and I need help. I just had major surgery. I had major surgery and I'm a new mom. I'm not sleeping. It sucked. I sat and bawled. I was so upset. Again, keep in mind, at that point, I was maybe one of 2 or 3 women that were in the hospital having their babies. At that point, I called my parents and they came. Also, every single time you ring the little call button to get your nurse if you need anything, the woman who answers, and like I said, this has been both my experiences in 2 different hospitals. The nurse that answers, that asks where, you know, what you need, and they are always answering and going, what? What do you need? Being really, really rude. They hung up on me a couple times. It was just horrible. So my thing is, like, when this is supposed to be this great moment and you're having a baby and it's supposed to be so, you know, joyous and amazing, the people who are supposed to be there to help, I don't understand why they have such crappy attitudes and why I understand you probably get women in there who are crazy and like make your job so hard and you're working such long hours. Sure, that sucks, but having crappy nurses makes or breaks your labor experience and your postpartum care experience. My labor nurses have all been amazing. but the postpartum nurses have all been horrible and I don't understand why. 2 different states, 2 different hospitals, I don't get it. So finally it got to this point where I was like, I just want to leave. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. And I'm ready to just be at home with my baby. Got all checked out. Like I said, I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday. I had the staples taken out and that wasn't very fun either. It was, I mean, it didn't hurt a ton. It was more of just like pinching every time they would take out a staple. So yeah, we took the baby home and our lives changed forever. I think we both felt like, what the heck are we doing? There's nobody gonna be around to help us. And we have to try to keep this human alive all by ourselves. It was a little scary. My postpartum care was hard. I mean, you have to make sure that you're staying on top of your pain meds because if not, you're gonna be in an extreme amount of pain. And there were several times where I forgot and it sucks. It hurts really bad. I was walking around like an old woman for days, just hunched over, and Matt had to help me get in and out of bed. And I think that it makes, you know, it's so much harder. You're a first-time mom and you just had major surgery. You can't do a lot. It's hard to just hold your baby. And so those first couple months, I mean, it obviously takes months for it to fully heal and to feel better. And those first couple months, I sat in bed all day long, every single day. Claire didn't like sleeping in her bed. She would sleep being held, and it was so hard getting her to sleep anywhere else. Yeah, it was just a lot of pain and a lot of, you know, taking time to heal. And with that came a lot of postpartum depression, which I think I'll go into in a different video because we would be here forever if I was to go into all that, especially with the C-section. I feel like that made my postpartum depression way worse. I just struggled for a really long time, feeling like I was almost cheated out of a birth experience. I know now, obviously, that having a C-section doesn't make me any less of a mom. It was hard. I struggled with that for a really long time. But yeah, that is it. That is the story of the birth of my oldest daughter, who is now 3, and she's amazing and we love her, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, a little story time while I do makeup. And yeah, if you want to hear the birth story of my second daughter, let me know in the comments down below because it was very different from this experience. Just keep in mind also, not every experience is the same. So although I may have had a real crappy experience, there are plenty of women out there who have really great ones. So if this deters you from having kids, don't let it, because I still had a second one even after this one. So, I mean, that's gonna tell you something, right? Thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you next time. Bye.